Chapter 15. On the day of their greatest adventure, Atayan had come without his dog, so there was no warning. Matt was in fine spirits that day because he had managed by a magnificent stroke of luck to hit a rabbit with his bow and arrow. Poor bunny. It was the first time this had happened, and it was more the rabbit's doing than his own. The silly creature had just sat there and let him take careful aim. All the same, he was pleased with himself, and even more pleased that Atayan had been there to see it. When the boys decided to visit the Beaver Dam again, Matt was unwilling to leave the rabbit behind in case some thieving animal should discover it. He was walking behind Atayan, swinging the rabbit carelessly by the ears, as Atayan always did, when the Indian suddenly halted, his whole body tensed. Matt could see nothing unusual, and he had opened his mouth to speak when Atayan silenced him with a jerk of his hand. Then he heard a sound in the underbrush ahead. Not a rustle like a grouse or a snake, not a trapped animal. This was a stirring of something moving slowly and heavily. He felt a cold prickle in his stomach. He stood beside Atayan, his own muscles tight, scarcely breathing. A low bush bent sideways. Through the leaves, a brown head thrust itself, bigger than that of a dog and shaggier. It was a small bear cub. Matt could see the little eyes peering at them curiously, the brown nose wrinkling at the strange smell of human boy. The little animal looked so comical that Matt almost laughed out loud. "Sst!" Atayan warned under his breath. There was a crashing of bush and a low, snarling growl. An immense paw reached through the thicket and tumbled the cub over and out of sight. In its place loomed a huge brown shape. Bursting through the leaves was a head 3 times as big as the cub's. No curiosity in those small eyes, only an angry reddish gleam. Somehow Matt had the sense not to run. He stood frozen on the path. A bear could overtake a running man in a few bounds, and this one was only 2 bounds away. The bear's head moved slowly from side to side. Its heavy body brushed aside the branches as though they were cobwebs. It swayed, shifting its weight from one foot to the other. Slowly it rose on its hind legs. Matt could see the wicked curving claws. Matt would never know why he acted as he did. He could not remember thinking at all, only staring with numb horror at the creature about to charge. Somehow he did move. He swung the dead rabbit by its ears and hurled it straight at the bear's head. The tiny body struck the bear squarely on its nose. With a jerk of her head, the bear shook it off as though it were a buzzing mosquito. The rabbit flopped useless to the ground. The bear did not even bother to look down at it. She had been distracted for only an instant, but in that instant something flashed through the air. There was a sharp twang and the dull thud of a blow. Just between the eyes of the bear, the shaft of Atayan's arrow quivered. As the waving forepaws began to lower, a second arrow struck just below the bear's shoulder. The great head shuddered and sank toward the ground. With a wild yell, Atayan sprang forward and thrust his knife deep, just behind his first arrow. Still scarcely aware that he moved at all, Matt leaped after him. Jerking his own knife from his belt, he sank it into brown fur. His blow had been misplaced, but it was not needed. The bear's sides were heaving. The boys stood watching, and in a few moments it lay still. Matt stared down at the creature in horror. The fearsome yellow teeth were still bared in a snarl. Saliva and blood dribbled down from the open jaws. The little eyes that had glittered so savagely were filmed over. The long, sharp claws hung powerless, clotted with pawed up earth. Now that there was nothing to fear, Matt felt his knees shaking. He hoped that Atayan would not notice, and he managed a wide grin to hide his trembling. But Atayan did not grin back. He stood over the bear, and he began to speak slowly and solemnly in his own tongue. He spoke for some time. "What were you saying?" Matt demanded when the speaking was over. "I tell bear I do not want to kill," Atayan answered. "Indian not kill she bear with cub. I tell bear we did not come here to hunt." "But it might have killed us both." "Maybe. I ask bear to forgive that I must kill." "Well, I'm mighty thankful you did," Matt said stoutly. He was about to say that he had never been so scared in his life, but he thought better of it. Atayan looked at him, and his solemnness suddenly dissolved in a grin. "You move quick," he said, "like Indian." Matt felt his cheeks turn red. "You killed him," he said honestly, yet he knew that he had had a part. He had given Atayan just that instant in which to notch his arrow. Atayan nudged the bear with his toe. "Small," he said, "just some fat, good for eat." Small? That monstrous creature? It certainly was too big for two boys to carry. It appeared that Atayan had no intention of trying. "Belong squaw now," he said. "I go tell." "You mean a squaw is going to carry that heavy thing?" "Cut up meat, then carry. Squaw work," Atayan answered. It was plain that he had done the man's work and was finished with it. The cub, Matt remembered now. It was nowhere in sight. Atayan shook his head. "Let cub go," he said. "When Sigwan come again, him plenty big to eat." "Take rabbit," Atayan reminded him. Matt looked with distaste at the rabbit, almost covered by the bear's heavy paw, the fur matted and bloody. He would rather not have touched it, but obediently he pulled it out. It was his dinner after all, and he knew that in Atayan's world, everything that was killed must be used. The Indians did not kill for sport. When Atayan had disappeared into the forest, Matt still stood looking down at the first bear he had ever seen. He felt resentful. Atayan had killed the bear, of course. It was his by right. But Matt would have liked just a small share of that meat, or even one of those big claws to show his father. Then he remembered the Indian boy's tribute. He had moved fast, like an Indian. That would have to be share enough.